General Hospital spoilers tease that the shock of discovering Gio is not Dante's biological son is triggering an uncontrollable psychological chain reaction in a man who has always been known for his calmness, discipline, and self-control in even the harshest situations. But this time, no principle can keep him steady. No experience can prepare him for the brutal truth that threatens to shatter the entire worldview he has clung to. The fact that Gio, the child Dante once considered his own flesh and blood, the child he raised, protected, and nurtured with love and devotion, is not his biological son, delivers a merciless blow to everything Dante once believed was sacred: fatherhood, family, and unconditional loyalty to those he considered his own. Everything he sacrificed to earn the role of a father, everything he gambled with his life to protect a child he thought was his blood, now crumbles before a secret that has been buried for far too long. The truth not only brings Dante pain but also makes him feel like a fool, a puppet being led by the strings in a play where everyone around him seems to be in on it, and he alone remains unaware. The psychological pressure from this shock starts to erode Dante's once strong clarity of mind. His behavior becomes tense, rigid, and even explosive. He no longer retains his usual calm demeanor, replaced instead by uncontrolled bursts of anger, suspicious glances, and gestures that reveal deep-seated emotional hurt, feelings he can no longer suppress. This psychological shift, from balance to instability, has become an internal explosion, an obsession that gnaws at every corner of Dante's soul. Every time he looks at Gio, instead of feeling the closeness and love of a father, he now feels emptiness, disappointment, and alienation. Gone are the proud looks of a father gazing at his son, now it's the gaze of someone betrayed, someone who thought they were the hero of the story, only to be pushed aside as an irrelevant background character. And when Dante looks back over everything, the first person he thinks of is not Gio, but Lois, the mother, the woman who was once his emotional anchor, the person he believed would never lie to him. Yet it was her silence that allowed this terrible secret to remain hidden for so long. And then there's Sonny, once a role model to Dante, the man who guided him through storms and watched him grow, but now becomes the prime suspect among those who knew the truth and chose silence, or worse, actively helped cover it up for personal reasons. The anger inside Dante can no longer be contained. It has gone beyond ordinary disappointment. He feels oppressed, betrayed, crushed by those he trusted most. And when these feelings can no longer be buried, Dante stands on the brink of an act of violence that could change everything. He might lash out at Lois in fury for lying to him all these years, or turn on Sonny, the man who once was a pillar but now symbolizes the deepest betrayal. Dante no longer thinks with reason. He is no longer the model police officer able to view everything through an objective lens. His emotions, hurt, and humiliation have overtaken his mind. From a protective father, he is slowly turning into a desperate, deeply wounded man, willing to do anything to uncover the truth, even if that truth could destroy everything he still believes in. Dante begins to doubt everything. Does Lois truly love him as a mother? Does Sonny regard him as a son? Is anyone actually interested in telling the truth, or are they all trying to protect a perfect lie? A play where Gio is the lead and Dante is nothing more than an expendable extra? The explosion within Dante's mind is becoming an undercurrent that threatens to engulf everyone around him. Words, glances, everyday actions have become a trigger for potential outbursts. No one knows what will happen if Dante completely loses control. He could do something that leaves no way back, destroying relationships that were once sacred, or even destroy himself in a fury with no escape. And while everyone else is still reeling from the shock of Gio not being Dante's son, it is Dante who is standing at the most dangerous crossroads, between truth and madness, between justice and revenge, between accepting pain or letting it spiral into irreversible destruction. The new story unfolding reveals an undeniable truth. One of the deepest manipulations is now slowly erupting, and this time, the one standing at the crossroads of choice is no longer Dante, but Gio. While Dante grows increasingly unhinged by the psychological pressure from the shock that Gio is not his biological son, Gio is surprisingly remaining calm. This contrast is creating a fragile balance, a tension in the air like a powder keg waiting for the final spark to ignite. And if anyone has the ability to stop Dante from self-destructing and destroying those around him, it is none other than Gio, the child Dante once loved like his own blood. Now potentially the only person who can prevent Dante from falling into the abyss of madness. Gio is no longer the dependent boy quietly standing in the shadow of the father he once trusted implicitly. He is growing up, facing not only the brutal truth of his own identity but also the true nature of those around him. It is this maturity that makes Gio unable to stand by while Dante slips further off the path of reason. His uncontrollable behavior, unfounded accusations, irrational anger directed at Lois, Sonny, and even Gio himself, have crossed the line of forgiveness. It's time for Gio to act, not to protect himself, but to stop Dante from doing something that could never be undone. The tension between the two is rising, and when these long-suppressed emotions finally boil over, a confrontation is inevitable. An explosion. And this time, the first to strike will not be Dante, it will be Gio. In a moment of pure rage, when Dante crosses the line, when cruel words are directed at those Gio loves most, when all the hurt Gio has bottled up has nowhere left to go, he punches Dante. This punch is not just a physical act, but a symbol of resistance. Of a new generation no longer willing to endure the unjust oppression of the old. A punch full of emotion, pain, disappointment, and above all, awakening. The room falls silent. No one expected Gio, the one who always avoided confrontation, the one who sought to calm things down, to be the first to strike. But this act shakes the entire situation to its core. It is a shock not just to Dante, but also to Lois, Sonny, and everyone who thought Gio would forever be the passive child. In that moment, Gio abandons the role of the victim and steps into the role of the one who decides, the one who dares to say no to injustice, who stands against even the person who was once his protector. For Dante, the punch carries more than physical power, it is a psychological blow heavier than any reprimand. It's proof that he has lost control, not only of the situation but also of those closest to him. And if someone like Gio, who always sought reconciliation, who once saw Dante as a role model, had to resort to a punch to react, it means Dante has crossed a line no one thought he would ever cross. That brief altercation leaves a mark that can't be erased. It's no longer just a quarrel between father and son, it is a symbolic turning point. Opening a new chapter where generations must face each other not through the false bonds of blood but through truth, responsibility, and the courage to say what needs to be said, even if it is painful and irreparable. And from that moment, Gio is no longer the boy who needs protecting. He has stepped out of Dante's shadow, through action, through anger, and through the compassion he tried to maintain until the very end. But when compassion is no longer enough to defend against the devastation of a man being twisted by his own hurt, Gio is forced to become the one who acts, the one who intervenes. The one who stops the storm, even if it means destroying a relationship built on a lie that has lasted far too long to fix. The story of Joe's true identity is entering its darkest and most chaotic phase. As each layer of disguise is stripped away and every piece of truth is ripped from what once seemed like a stable and secure life. While Dante is losing control due to the undeniable shock that Gio is not his biological son, another person is witnessing this entire chaos from a completely different perspective, Cody. No longer an outsider, Cody is facing a powerful emotional eruption as the truth about the father-son relationship between him and Gio is gradually becoming undeniable. And when that happens, Cody not only has to confront fear, regret, and the years of lost time, but also has to take decisive action to protect the child he never had the chance to father properly. Dante's escalating loss of control is making things so dangerous that Cody can no longer stand by. He sees every action, every outburst of anger, and every hateful word Dante directs at Gio. And with the instincts of a true father, even though his fatherhood has never been officially acknowledged, Cody realizes that Gio is being pushed into a dangerous space where emotional trauma could leave lifelong scars. No one understands Gio better than Cody at this moment. And no one else can step in to protect him. As everyone else, including Lois and Sonny, are caught in a whirlwind of chaos that's clouding their judgment. Cody realizes he no longer has time to hesitate. He cannot continue to avoid the truth. He cannot wait for Gio to naturally discover that he is his real father. He must act, must stand as the shield. The only person still calm and responsible enough to stop Dante before things go any further. While Dante loses his balance, Cody is undergoing a kind of awakening. Realizing that changing the narrative of Joe's life is not only a shock to those around him, but an opportunity, not an opportunity for manipulation or exploitation, but an opportunity for redemption. To claim the role of fatherhood he had missed, to regain trust, and above all, to protect the biological child he didn't know he loved so much until he watched him fall apart bit by bit. The story is becoming a breathless race between Dante's explosive actions and Cody's rise as a father ready to step out of the shadows, even if it means going against someone who was once considered a brother. A family member, a comrade. This event is not just a shock to Jason, Lois, Sonny, or Gio. It is a symbolic turning point in the entire power structure of the family. As the order is disrupted and every role that had been assigned must now be reassessed. And in this chaos, Cody, once seen as an outsider, a cowboy who lived day by day, someone without roots, is now the only anchor that can keep Gio from falling apart completely. This doesn't come from an opportunity, but from the deep awakening of a man who has missed everything, but is now ready to stand up against the world if it means protecting his child. However, with this plot shift, Cody begins to see aspects he had never considered before. If the truth is revealed, if Gio finds out that he is his biological father, will he forgive him? Will Gio accept someone who was never there when he needed him, but is now coming forward as a hero? And if Gio doesn't accept, can Cody still fulfill that role without recognition? This is the time when Cody must not only battle Dante, but also struggle with his own conscience, with the past he's failed to address, with the uncertain present, and with an unpredictable future. Meanwhile, Dante continues to spiral deeper into darkness. His actions are no longer simply a manifestation of pain but a red flag for an individual being crushed by expectations, trauma, and the collapse of his identity. Cody knows that if he doesn't step in, Dante will continue to harm Gio, with words, actions, and the instability he can no longer control. And when Cody steps up, no one will stand between them anymore. It will be a confrontation between two men, one who is losing everything, and one who is trying to reclaim what he never had. This story is no longer just about the truth of bloodlines, but a harsh test of love, responsibility, and the ability to face the consequences. And while everything is crossing limits, with pieces of truth exposed amidst rage and tears, Cody will have to answer one question: can he save Gio, not only from Dante, but from the truth itself that threatens to destroy his life? How? And will he be strong enough to do that, even if Gio isn't ready to accept him as his father? This is a new challenge, an explosion of truth, and the beginning of a chapter that has never been written in both of their lives. Amidst the emotional storm and the revelations of numerous secrets, Gio is still being kept by Sonny, accepted as an irreplaceable part of this already broken family. This acceptance is not just an act from the most powerful man in Port Charles, but a firm statement that no matter how brutal the truth about Joe's lineage may be, he is still part of this household, to be loved, protected, and guided. Sonny, with his paternal instincts and seasoned experience, recognizes the potential, loyalty, and the underlying pain in Gio, and he decides not to let him get lost amidst the overlapping shocks. Sonny will guide him towards a new path, a new future, where Gio is no longer defined by the past or by the mistakes others made on his behalf, but by his own strength and choices. However, while Sonny is trying to reshape Joe's path, a new madness is truly exploding, pushing the storyline to unprecedented limits. Dante, once a character representing stability, integrity, and faith in justice, has completely lost his direction. Unable to accept the truth that Gio is not his biological son, unable to forgive the loved ones who hid this from him for so long, and unable to control the violent emotions ripping through his mind, Dante has fallen into a state of complete breakdown. No longer just outbursts of anger, no longer just accusations. Dante is now deep into a dangerous state of confusion, where the line between reality and illusion, reason and delusion, ego and betrayal has dissolved. Every attempt at reasoning, every bit of patience from Sunny, Lois, and even Gio, has become meaningless against the speed at which Dante is spiraling into darkness. His out-of-control actions have become a real threat to those around him, especially as he begins to show signs of unpredictable violence. What no one wanted to face finally happens. Dante, once the anchor, is now forced to be placed in a mental institution. This decision is not simply a medical measure, it's a bitter admission that the man once seen as the symbol of strength and ethics in the Port Charles police force can no longer control himself. With Dante placed in the mental institution, his storyline at General Hospital reaches a haunting conclusion. This is not a gentle farewell or a quiet withdrawal, it's a heavy, tragic ending. A character once beloved, once crucial in keeping the balance among the forces, is now taken off the board in the harshest way possible, by losing himself. Those who once saw Dante as the embodiment of reason must now accept that he no longer has the ability to return. His story doesn't end in victory or growth, but in collapse, the inevitable result of years of suffering that no one recognized, of repressed pain, and of trust betrayed beyond repair. But in this very dark moment, Gio steps forward as an unusual light. From being the unwitting cause of Dante's downfall, he is now the only one who can represent rebirth, not just for himself, but for the rest of the family. Sunny places his trust in Gio, not only because of affection, but because he sees in him a decisiveness, unwavering loyalty, and a pain that has been tempered into strength. Gio will be the one to carry on, not to replace Dante, but to rise above the immense shadow Dante left behind. And in a strange twist of fate, when one falls, another rises. As Dante collapses for not accepting the truth, Gio will be the one to live with it, overcome it, and grow stronger from the ashes. Sunny knows this. And that is why he places all the remaining responsibility and hope on Gio, the son without blood, but with a heart strong enough to rewrite his own future. While Dante is erased from the screen with a grim conclusion, a new door is opening for Gio, a new plot, a new chapter, where he is no longer the one being led, but the one who stands at the forefront. The one in control, the one chosen to continue, not because of the past, but because of the future he deserves. Gio is about to enter the center of a dramatic whirlwind as his true identity, long hidden behind a tangled web of family secrets, begins to come to light. No longer the boy living in Dante's shadow, no longer the one caught up in the conflict between adults. Gio is now boldly facing the truth, deciding to take matters into his own hands regarding his identity, bloodline, and self-worth. It is that moment, the choice not to run away, that triggers a new explosive adjustment chain in the entire plot, causing everything to seem to reverse and start moving in a completely different direction. When Gio accepts his true origin, he not only removes the mask that others have built for him, but also resets the entire foundation of his relationship with those around him, Dante, Cody, Sunny, Lois, and the forces behind the scenes who have used this truth as a tool of control. The truth is no longer what breaks Gio, but becomes a weapon to redefine his role. That action sets off a chain reaction, causing a profound adjustment, not only within Gio, but within the long-corrupted structure of power and trust within the Corinthos family and those around him. Each person is forced to look at themselves. Dante collapses because he can't handle the truth, Cody wakes up because he finally has to take responsibility. And Sunny, who has always been the leader, now has to face the shifting balance of power within the family he once controlled. But it is Joe's maturity and determination that becomes the explosive subject that makes things impossible to go back to the way they were. He is no longer a weak boy who needs to be protected, but a man who is rewriting his story with sobriety, reason, and a heart that still has many unhealed wounds but is no longer guided by the past. Joe's rise takes place against a backdrop of madness. Dante is in a mental institution, Cody is just coming to terms with his role as a father, and Sunny is reorienting the world around him with the people he thought he understood. While everyone else is dealing with their own shocks and losses, Gio quietly takes the stage. His actions are no longer reactions, but deliberate, calculated moves, choosing whom to talk to, whom to forgive, whom to keep at arm's length, and whom to confront. And it is from these choices that a new truth begins to emerge, not in words, but in actions. Gio doesn't need a title to prove his worth, he doesn't need blood to define who his real family is. What he needs is control, not power, but the right to determine his own future. This leaves the entire power structure more fragile and vulnerable than ever. Characters who once thought they controlled the narrative, from Lois to Sunny, are now being forced to see Gio as a new force, a new focal point, not to be overlooked. With the plot repositioned to focus on Joe's new leading role, a completely different chapter of General Hospital is being written. One that is no longer about secrets being kept, but about the courage to face them. One where Gio is no longer someone manipulated by the choices of others, but someone who creates new rules. And while the characters around him are still struggling to find their place, Gio, with all his experiences, traumas, and unexpected growth, is gradually establishing himself as the new central force in Port Charles. This story is no longer about who Joe's biological father is, but about who Gio will be from this point forward. And the answer, now, is no one else to define but himself. A character once considered obscure, now becomes a key factor. A ray of light piercing the chaotic darkness of the Corinthos family, and an embodiment of a new truth, sometimes. The person who is most deceived is the one who can guide the truth more strongly than anyone else.